Welcome, Augies Worldwide. Thank you for tuning in. I'm Dave Kassler, amateur radio, call sign KE0OG, and this is another episode of Ask Dave. We answer questions sent to hamradioanswers@gmail.com. That's hamradioanswers@gmail.com. And our Ask Dave editor here, Trevor Oman, who is a third-year film student at BYU, is going to collate those, pull them together, and we'll do one of these. You're getting pretty close to having to go back to school, aren't you?
Yep.
When do you head back?
September 3rd.
September 3rd. All right. Well, we've got till then to make a few more videos then. Thanks a lot for all your support this summer. You'll be missed.
LCSC Electronics is now a sponsor of this channel. LCSC Electronics is an international distributor of electronics parts and is a circuit board manufacturer. Please check out their websites at lcsc.com and easyeda.com.
All right, let's take a look at what we've got.
All right, Mark, call sign K1CYN, has a question about the power supply for his ICOM 746 PRO transceiver.
The 746 Pro is a classic transceiver that's a really good one. Running on my desk with the PS125 power supply unit. Interested in going out in the field and set up a portable station from the tailgate. How can I power this transceiver by means of a battery? Well, some radios are better than this at others. Some are driven by a 12-volt battery directly, and that's great for them. They work really well. My Ten-Tech Jupiter was like that. It would go all the way down to 12 volts, which is 50% discharge in a battery. However, my FTDX 3000 is pickier than that. And the highest charged battery voltage, which is 12.7, that's a rested battery, is actually too low for it, and it behaves unpredictably, meaning it crashes. So I got a little booster unit from TG Electronics, MFJ makes one too, that takes that 12 volts and boosts it up to 13.8, and they're really solid so that you can do well off that battery for quite a while. If it's a 12 volt deep cycle marine type battery, you can operate for several hours on that. Do they make power cords that will match the pin configuration on the back of this transceiver that transition over to only two ends, black and red, to connect to the battery terminals? Well, I'm not super familiar with the ICOM 746 Pro, but I thought that's how it was fed. You had to have an external 12 volt battery, an external 13.8 volt power supply, and that you would connect that with the red and the black, and that they would go together like that. Somebody probably makes the connector you're talking about. I can't point you to someone right now. That's not something that I've looked at. But good luck with that. I mean, try your radio on 12 volts on the battery, see how well it works. If you have any issues at all, get one of those little battery boosters from either TG Electronics or MFJ, and they'll solve that problem for you real quickly.
All right, Bill, call sign KE5KWE, is wondering about a power supply for 2 rigs.
Answer the basic question, yes, you can use one power supply to power multiple rigs. 2 rigs in the shacks, VHF and HF. Do I need 2 power supplies? No. Can I connect them both to the same source? Yes. The HF rig is QRP and the VHF rig is a 50-watt rig, so you've probably got a 10 or 15 amp rig, or a 10 or 15 amp power supply minimum, and that would work with both of them just fine. You might look at powering that HF rig with a battery because the load on the power supply from the HF rig is very low, and you can get some power supply noise with such a minimum loading on it. But no, they'll work fine.
Alright, Steven, call sign KC3FRJ, is wondering about a ground loop.
No such fun. If my ground braid straps cross each other going to the single point ground, will this cause a ground loop? Probably not. I have no grounding bus as of yet. 2 pieces of equipment are being grounded to my window feed line through panel, transceiver and tuner. And I assume from there you go to the ground rod. No, it's fine. You're in good shape.
Peter, call sign N9GXI, is wondering about getting FM on an Rd Phi Bar.
Cannot get the FM radio channel to show up in my Rd Phi Bar. I believe it's in there. All the Chinese radios seem to have them. It is set up in software to S2, which is the call button. You'd have to hold it down for a while. Everything down but not button 1. I don't know what that means. It should work. If the squelch is open in the radio for any reason, like noise or there's listening to a channel or something, putting that button down may not do anything. You need to have the radio quiet, squelched. When you press that button, a long press on it ought to bring up the FM radio.
Jerry, call sign K5JC, is wondering about transmitting on one band.
Transmitting on one band. Feeding a multiband Jaypole. Okay, the RG8 is fed down through the half-inch pipe to coils of the coax below the 2-meter section. It looks like a cactus with 3 matching stubs. Connects separate coax cable to proper feed point and got good SWR in all bands. Huh. Coax center conductors are connected with stainless steel clamps in the longer portion and the shields to the matching stubs. That's fine. Jaypoles really conceptually are single band antennas. And when you start doing multiple band hoops with them, you're really contorting that thing to make it work. The problem is not so much in the antenna section of it, but down in that 19-inch piece of parallel feed line where you feed it down at the bottom. That's set to resonate for 2 meters. And if you're going to do something for 220 and 440, there are diagrams out there for antennas and they claim to work. If it works for you, do it. But to me, an ideal multiband antenna should be fed with 1 piece of coax, and that's all you need. I've never personally tried to make a Jaypole on more than 1 band. You can do it on 1 band very easily. If anything, and you're going to run 3 pieces of coax anyway, do 3 antennas, 1 on each band. I think that would work far better for you. Okay.
All right. Rick, call sign KI6VOS, is wondering about wattage of a signal calculation.
Okay. How can the wattage of a signal be calculated as a function of distance? Assume a transceiver outputs so many watts. How, as in is their formula, can the wattage be computed at a specific distance from the aerial, say a measurement point 1 nautical mile from the antenna? For example, 100 watts of perfect output would be a certain number of watts at not nanometer, 1 nautical mile. HF antennas are a little bit weird. I mean, if we were dealing with parabolic dishes, we could talk about capture area and things like that, because the signal spreads out in all directions and loses value rapidly, by the way, very rapidly, because it's a square law kind of thing. So if you double the distance, you get 1/4 the power going out that way. The problem is trying to figure the capture area of the receive antenna, and it may have some gain. The capture area of the receive antenna, even though it's a dipole, is bigger than the dipole. See, concomitantly also, is there a formula? How can the distance from an aerial be estimated for a specified power loss? For example, 1,000 watts of output will be 500 watts at D distance, about 30 feet, kilometers, miles, nautical miles, feet, etc. from the antenna. Can it be done? The thing about radio is you transmit a very strong signal and you receive a very weak signal. You send a kilowatt and you're going to receive a picowatt or less. The problem is that you're trying to fill all space with that radio wave and then have that radio wave be strong enough to induce a voltage in a receive antenna and then be amplified and communication take place. Now that's the miracle of radio, that you can spread a signal and it can be picked up so tiny. But it's an inverse square law. If you've got an isotropic antenna and you're in the far field, okay, you got to be in the far field. That's very important. Far field for an HF antenna is 2 to 5 wavelengths away. Your received antenna, assuming you've got an equal antenna, dipole to dipole, something like that, goes down as the square of the distance. So if it's 1,000 watts at its originating point, you look at the sphere. Okay, so if you go say you go 100 feet out, okay, if you captured the entire signal, you'd have the 100 watts original, but you're not capturing it. You're capturing a very, very small piece of it. And there are calibrated receivers that can do this, but it would be down in the milliwatts, microwatts, nanowatts by the time you even got 1 mile out there. It's just inverse square law. So now you run into also a problem in that the gain of an antenna is not only a function of the capture area, but the frequency. Gain goes up with frequency because the wavelength is in the denominator. It's very interesting to look at the engineering of all that. But basically think inverse square law and capture area to give you an idea of how much attenuation in the path there is. This is called path loss, by the way. And path loss is well over 100 dB for most HF circuits. That's a 10 followed by 10 zeros over a 1. That's how much you're receiving the signal. It's not much at all. Okay.
All right. Randy asks about listening in on a UV 8000E.
Well, I have one of those. Out of the box, it gets NOAA, yes. Trying to program it for the upcoming Reno air races, and now it won't even get NOAA. I'm not a ham person, don't have a license, just want to listen in. Should I sell it, or can somebody program it for me? You can probably program it for yourself. It's pretty simple to program. You have to go on the manufacturer's website and get the software to program it. And then you have to have a cable driver for the cable that you're using to program it so that you can actually connect with the programming software. It's ever so much easier to programming these things if you have the programming software. Good luck with what you're doing there, listening on it. If you know about the NOAA weather broadcasts in the 162 megahertz region and the Reno air races, which are either going to be in the AM channels just above the FM broadcast band, which I'm not sure the 8000E picks up. There are also some in the 200 megahertz region. If you're doing all that, why don't you just go ahead and get a license? We'd sure love to talk to you on the air.
Call sign NGOC is wondering about programming software for a Motorola GP728 and an A8S.
If it's Motorola, there's no free software. Motorola charges for the software, and they charge it dearly. It's in the $300 to $400 range for the software for programming. Motorola is used to dealing with things like police departments, fire departments, and so on, and where they have like one person who programs all the radios. And the software costs money. One of the reasons for that is the liability having to do with public safety work and so on. Most programming software for most amateur radio equipment comes free. That's not necessarily true from the Japanese manufacturers, but all the Chinese manufacturers offer free software. What you really need to do is find somebody in a local club that uses the Motorola DMR equipment and has the software that can program it. Well, good luck. Good luck with that. The Motorola makes great radios. They're bulletproof, but the software to program it can cost real money.
Jack, call sign W6VMJ, is wondering about a 20-meter antenna conversion.
Ooh, modify a BITX40 for 20 meters. Wow. That radio is made very specifically for that frequency. Why not buy the micro BITX radio? It's a little micron, Greek micron, and then BITX from the same people at HF SIGs, which just works out of the box on 20, as well as other bands. I think, it's the same amount of work as putting a BITX 40 together, and I think you'll get better results with the micro BITX. Yeah, there's quite a bit of stuff that would be required to modify. You mentioned the software for the SI 5351, some coils that need changing. You'd say a couple coils. I think it's more than that. Wants to run this rig on 14074 and FT8, which is a good thing to do, but if you have not yet bought the rig, buy the micro BITX. Comes out of the box ready to go on 40, 20, 15, 10, etc., and will do either sideband or Morse code. Of course, you'd use sideband to do the FT8. So that's my recommendation. Get the micro BITX. I have both. I would recommend the micro BITX.
All right. Ian, call sign KC3JEQ, is wondering about how to achieve noise reduction on his antenna.
That's a problem. The Yaesu, an auto tuner, G5RV multiband antenna 30 feet above the ground. Is there anything I can do to improve the signal strength to noise reduction? What would you suggest as a replacement antenna for 6 through 80 meters? Well, I'm assuming you live in a location where a dense urban area where you have lots of houses around you, and that can be a real problem. The HF noise level has been going up gradually all over. I happen to live in a very radio quiet location, which is nice, but I have lived in places where there's a lot of static. Use a digital noise reduction filter, can really help. And try and make sure the G5RV isn't running over your own house, because it can pick up noise from your house. I mean, every time the blender gets turned on or the fluorescent lights are on and so on, you can try going through the process of seeing if there's something in your house that's causing the noise. Basically, you start shutting off the breakers one by one and see if the noise suddenly goes away or diminishes quite a bit. and then you know it's something on that circuit, and you can figure out what it is and go through the normal processes to reduce its noise. There's a lot more about this in the ARRL handbook. There are also books that specifically address RFI, and you can get those from the leagues. It's a very frustrating problem, and I'm sorry you're having to put up with it.
Kenneth calls in KD4HQQ is wondering about connecting his ICOM 7300 to his Ameritron AL811LH.
He wants to go for some power here. The new ICOM 7300 is a very nice radio. It's a software-defined radio. It's not superhead. It goes through quite a different process to come up with the signal. Okay, watching YouTube video and connecting it. In the video it showed connecting the antenna tuner after the amp. Yes. I don't have a tuner that can handle that type of power. Would like to do the following. The radio to the amp to the amplifier, no. That won't do you any good. The connection from the 7300 to the Ameritron is going to be a 50 ohm connection. If it is something weird, you might have to put an amp there, but it has nothing to do with your antenna, because it's the Ameritron that sees the antenna. You need to go IC 7300 to the Ameritron 811H, go through your watt meter, and then go to the antenna. Now, I'm in a situation like you. I don't have an antenna tuner that handles the power output of my 500 watt linear amp. So what I have to do is make sure that my antennas are very carefully tuned. I have to transmit into a load that's less than 2 to 1 SWR, and to really get all the power out, it needs to be less than about 1.5 to 1 SWR. So I do without the tuner because I don't have one. The tuners that handle the higher power tend to be expensive. That's what I would do. Make sure those antennas have got less than 2 to 1, certainly, and if you can, even better than that in the regions where you want to operate. Now the Ameritron 811H, if it encounters an SWR it doesn't like, it will throttle back the power to the point where you get something that you can handle. Well, that's the net of our questions for this video. Thank you very much, Trevor. Appreciate it. And Trevor's going back to BYU here soon to do great and marvelous things. And we will conclude this by noting that you can help this be a viewer-supported channel by going to www.patreon.com/KE0OG. There's a place where you can sign up to give a couple dollars a month or something like that of a recurring contribution. If you'd like to give just a single contribution, there's the tip jar, which is available at dcastler.com/support. Until we next meet, 73.